What's up, everybody? So first things first, Happy New Year to everybody. I know I'm kind of late on the game on this, but it's better now than never, right? I really wanted to give a lot of movies that I missed this year a fair chance at making it on my list, and thanks to all of my subscribers who actually recommended me a ton of great films, I was able to squeeze not all, but most of them I did check out and see. And on top of that, I actually watched a nice handful of films that weren't recommended to me either, so surprisingly, a lot of those films were able to make my top 16, so you'll be able to see a few films in here that I haven't even talked about or reviewed. And the only real reason why I'm doing a top 16 and not a top 15 is because that was the most comfortable aesthetic on my Letterboxd account. So yes, I do have a Letterboxd account. If you want to follow me there, that'd be awesome. My profile name is the Misfit Pond, obviously, so yeah. And oh yeah, I really wanted to show you guys this shit. So my girlfriend got me some gifts for Christmas, and this was one of them. Look at that beauty. Yeah, for those who don't know what it is the Holy Mountain in French. My girlfriend gave me a bunch of other awesome gifts too, but I think this was just like the highlight of it. She got me, and it wasn't just the Holy Mountain poster. The other posters you see right next to it, she also got me those. It's Only God Forgives, Under the Skin, and The Place Beyond the Pines. It just looks so fucking awesome. I think Hodorowski would be proud of this. Well, you know what? Probably not. He'd probably be like, no, do not worship me. I am not your idol. Alright, so first things first, before I jump into my list, let me go ahead and talk about some honorable mentions that just couldn't make the list. There's a lot of these films that I really liked and thought they were pretty good, but they just couldn't make the final cut, unfortunately. So let me start with Green Book. I actually got to watch Green Book, and I thought it was a pretty good film, actually. When I watched the trailer for it, it kind of looked like this manufactured Oscar bait fiasco, but watching it, I thought the writing was really good. I thought the acting was really good. The dialogues and the character exchanges between the two main characters in the film really made it, and luckily, that's pretty much the entire film, so I actually enjoyed that film quite a bit. Not enough, obviously, to make it to my top 16, but just thought I'd say that. Shoplifters. I saw this movie a few days ago. It's a great film, and it almost made my top 16, but there were just a few things about it that kind of bugged me a little bit, but it's a really great film. There's a lot of things to love about it, and it's just that there's so many great films this year that it's really hard for me to squeeze it in, but I highly recommend this to watch it, though. If I were to just grade it off the top of my head, I'd probably give it like a 7.5 or even an 8 out of 10. Blind Spotting is also another film that I heard a lot of great things about, a lot of people talking about it. It was one of my most recommended films to watch, and again, I thought it was a pretty good film, just not great enough to make it into my top 16. There was just a few things about it that I thought came off a little cheesy and not really as effective as it maybe wanted to. It also had a few weird, like, comedic tonal issues, in my opinion, that just felt out of place for the overall tone of the film. And it just overall has a few writing issues, but again, it's actually a really good film. I would actually recommend you to see it. And you know, in terms of its message about race relations, it's not as black and white as you think. It's actually a pretty nuanced film when it comes to that topic, so that's why I think I really enjoyed it. Burning also, unfortunately, didn't make the list. It came close to making the list, but just couldn't. I already have a review out for that, so I won't go into detail, but Burning is not on the list, unfortunately, but it is a good film. Cold War. This wasn't recommended to me, but I heard a lot of people talking about it. I saw it, and it's a good movie, and I don't think it's necessarily great. I know a lot of people really love the film a lot, but for me, it just, nothing about it really blew me away. The Night Comes for Us. That was one that was recommended to me, and I watched it, and I really liked it. It was an awesome action bloodfest that kind of reminded me a lot of The Raid and The Raid 2. I think it actually has two of the same actors from The Raid in this film, so it was really cool to see another film like The Raid and The Raid 2, except honestly, probably a lot more bloody and violent. And I know that's kind of weird to say because The Raid and The Raid 2 are already really violent, but it was great. It just, again, just couldn't make my top 16. Sorry to bother you. I watched that film too. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was maybe as great as some people described it. I think I might like it a little bit better than Get Out, even though I think Get Out has a more kind of pieced together and structured film, at least a more consistent film. But Sorry to Bother You, I think, is a more entertaining film, and it's a lot funnier than Get Out. But the kind of, the third act and the way, the road it went down, I don't know, it seemed like a fun, like, idea that just came about in his head and he just went full force with it. But maybe he should have just took a step back and think, this might not be a good idea. So these next two honorable mentions, I know that quite a bit of people are going to be upset about, but just for me personally, I didn't see enough greatness in them to make it in my personal top 16 list. So the first one is A Star is Born. I know a lot of people really love that film, but I have a whole review on why I don't think that film is as great as people describe it. But I don't think it's terrible. I just think it's quite average, especially in terms of how people are praising it. So that movie didn't make my list. Here's another big one that I think some people are going to get upset about. First Reformed. Most people's top 10 or top 16 or whatever they have, I see that First Reformed is usually way high up there. I also have a review for that if you just want to see what I actually think about that more in depth. But that film just had a lot of issues with it that kind of bugged me and didn't really engage me or immerse me in the way that I would hope that it would. And unfortunately, BlacKkKlansman won't be on the list. It was right there. It was literally number 17, but I just couldn't put it in my top 16 because I saw a few other films that I think just impressed me a little bit more. Nevertheless, BlacKkKlansman is a really good film. I highly recommend everybody to see it. I enjoyed that film much more than I thought I would, surprisingly. Alright, so I believe those are all of the honorable mentions that I wanted to say. There might have been a few that I forgot about, but those are, I think, are the important ones. And there are a few films that I didn't have a chance or the time to see that maybe would have made the list, such as If Beale Street Could Talk or Mid-90s. These films maybe could have made the list, but again, I just wasn't able to see them. I'm sorry. And just one final thing before I begin with the 16th best film of the year. I know you guys are probably like, holy shit, just shut up. Just get on with it. This list that I've compiled is not me trying to make an objective best films list of the year. Don't get me wrong. Objectivity is, definitely factored into where I make my decisions. But I try to make a mixture of like my personal taste and actual merit of the film. I try not to be too biased though, don't worry. But just know that this is a mixture of, actual film merit and my personal taste. Alright, no more bullshit. Time to get into it. Let's start, obviously, with number 16. And number 16 is the Netflix original film that's written and directed by Orson Welles called The Other Side of the Wind. So, it's kind of sad because when this film came out, I heard nothing about it. I only heard about this film when I asked all of my subscribers to recommend me films. And when I figured out this film is basically an old, unfinished Orson Welles movie, I was like, why isn't more, why aren't more people talking about this? So Orson Welles made Citizen Kane and a lot of other great films that are considered one of the best films in cinematic history. So you would think that more people would be talking about this film. But unfortunately, that's not the case. But when I watched the film, it was kind of apparent why maybe this isn't such a huge hit and why people aren't really talking about it. And I'm not saying that to say that it's bad. Obviously, it's in my top 16. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But it was much more experimental than I anticipated. It does this kind of mockumentary style, kind of satire kind of thing, where it kind of has this meta, like, found footage approach to it. And it's really the way that it's just edited and chopped up together. It's like really fast. Like I swear to God, like every millisecond, especially in like the first 15 minutes of the film, there's like a cut. The camera's moving everywhere and it's cutting and then it's moving and then it's cutting and then it's zooming in and then it's cutting and then there's people talking all throughout the chaos. And it was hard. Like to be honest with you, like the first 10 or 15 minutes of the film, I almost copped out. I was almost like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't watch it because like the first 15 minutes, I was actually confused on like which characters I was following, what the point of the film really was, and what I was even watching. And like in terms of narrative and character, I was just like, it was really hard for me to follow what was happening because like the way you throw out names, you just kind of have to wait and piece together who they're talking about as the film rolls along. And it was just kind of jarring at first, but once you kind of get used to it and once the film kind of gets its structure in a kind of recognizable gear after a while, then you can start really getting into the flow of this film. And once you start getting into the meat of this film, that's when it becomes like really impressive and very engaging because it's basically it's almost like Orson Welles wrote this movie about himself and also about his current situation because the film is literally about an old director who is making his last film and he's going to show it to everybody, but it's an unfinished film just like this film itself. And he's having trouble funding it, just like the actual film itself. And it's just kind of weird. It's a really meta, self-aware movie, but inside this movie, there's also, like I said, the director shows this movie to everybody, and you get to watch that movie in this movie. So this movie is a movie in a movie. So this film actually has a film within the film. Take a shot every time I say movie or film. That'll be fun. The film that they show you within this film is actually insanely well shot and really well directed. It's basically no dialogue in it. It's just this visual storytelling narrative that's just put together in this really captivating way. And a lot of the shots that are in it looks like it could have been shot today. Like, the quality is as crisp as that, and it's framed in that way too. So it's weird because this film feels like it was insanely ahead of its time. And even if it got released back then, I still don't even think that much people would have caught on to it. Even now, like, you know, modern audiences would absolutely shit on this movie. You cannot, like, this is a film that is purely for film lovers and art house film lovers. I can't see any casual moviegoer watching this film and even getting through it because it's just, it can be really confusing with its approach and style. But I really liked it. I thought it was well worth my time. It was really well shot. It's very creative, and I can tell that Orson Welles put his heart and soul into this project, because to see the editing on this and to see all the shots, it looks like a real bitch to make. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to number 15, which is Wes Anderson's Isle of Dogs. I already did a review on this film, so I won't be talking extensively about it, and that goes for every other movie that's on this list. If I've already did a review on it, you probably won't see me talking about it that much, but either way, Isle of Dogs is a fantastic piece of filmmaking. The meticulous craft that went into this film is staggering. I mean, I couldn't imagine taking on a project with this much detail, using claymation and stop motion animation stuff. I thought it was a really cute movie, a really atmospherical movie too. It really sucks you into this world because of the craft and the way that it's shot. It obviously still has that Wes Anderson style that you all love. You know, all that is there with the zoom ins and the zoom outs and the way the camera has those tracking shots. It's a really great film. I highly enjoyed it. I don't think I like it as much as Wes Anderson's previous stop motion animation, which is Fantastic Mr. Fox, but I still found myself enjoying it, obviously, so that's why it's number 15 on my list. The Ballad of Buster Scruggs is number 14 on my list. I just really enjoyed this film a lot. It's funny because the first time I saw it, I didn't think it was really that great, but I saw it like 3 or 4 more times, honestly, and it's just such an enjoyable film. All the shorts are definitely worth watching. There's obviously some that are stronger than others, some that are weaker than others, but all the shorts are really enjoyable. There's a lot of thought and time that are put into each and every short. My personal favorite short, I think, still is the gold digging one with Tom Waits. That one is just an emotional thrill ride, especially with the way that it's written, how things play out. I really enjoyed that one a lot. And like I said to my subscribers, at first I didn't really like Meal Ticket all that much with Liam Neeson, but after watching it a few more times, it really grew on me, and now it's like my second or third favorite short. So, love the movie. I think the Coen brothers did a great job with it. It's an anthology, which is probably the only reason why it's a little bit lower on the list, just because, you know, it's just a series of shorts, even though that doesn't mean to devalue it. But I wanted to give maybe a little bit more credit to films that are just, you know, just one full-length film. At number 13, we have A Quiet Place. So A Quiet Place was a film that I did not have a very good movie theater experience with, obviously, because I just have the worst fucking luck, especially in my shit area. People just don't know how to be, you know, considerate in a movie theater, I guess, but whatever. Either way, that didn't stop me from really enjoying the movie, because regardless of my shit experience, I was still able to see how awesomely crafted this film was, especially since I'm a huge fan of The Office. I was really wanting to see what John Krasinski can do and what he can bring to the table, and I was really impressed with this film. Sure, it's a little gimmicky, you know, you can't make a noise kind of thing, but he still made the hell out of this movie, and it really worked just the way it was directed, the way that he really experimented with sounds, and the way he utilized sound to the best possible potential for this film really worked in its favor. I thought it was really intense. The character writing isn't that bad either. I've heard some complaints about the character writing, but I've seen much worse. I mean, have you seen Bird Box? But I obviously really like this film. It was a really fun and enjoyable film. Really intense, so if you're going to this movie, just know that you're going to be probably tensing up the entire film. But I thought it was really well crafted, and that's why it's number 13 on my list. Yeah, 13. At number 12, we have American Animals. So American Animals is another one of those films that were highly recommended to me throughout the year, but I never really got the time or chance to check it out. But I finally decided to do it just so I can squeeze all these shit ton of films that I missed before I finalize my list. I saw it and I really fucking love this movie a lot. I was surprised how much I loved it, because one of the reasons why I kind of put it off for a while was because, well, there's a lot of other movies out now that I'd rather see, and I don't think I really want to see a biopic heist movie, because biopics don't really intrigue me that much. Usually I find them kind of boring if they're not directed in a really unique way. But luckily this film was directed in a unique way and in a very stylish way that I found to be very creative and engaging. This is honestly one of the most like no bullshit biopics that I've ever seen, because they have the actual people that, you know, were a part of the heist in this movie. As it kind of cuts back from, you know, the actors that play them, it'll cut from the actors to them as, you know, they kind of comment on what was happening. But a really interesting aspect of this approach was that it really conveys, you know, the kind of consequence of a difference in perspective, because it shows you in a really kind of like stylistic way that both of these people kind of have different accounts of certain elements of the story. And that's also just kind of like an overall thematic take on biopics in general, and in terms of like, you know, everything that you see isn't going to be 100% historically accurate. One, because of course you have to kind of package it in a more cinematic way, but more on the end that, you know, people have different perspectives of what actually happened. So you just kind of have to piece together all these different perspectives and make a product out of it. And I just like that little touch to it. And the acting in this film is phenomenal. The lead guy, played by a guy named Evan Peters, he was great. I've only seen him, I think, in one X-Men film. I think it's Days of Future Past. I don't know. I'm not a superhero guy. You guys know that. But he was excellent in this film. He carried this film very well. And he had a really demanding acting job. And he just gave a really good performance. I really bought his character through and through. And especially when it gets to the actual heist part, which it kind of takes a while to get to. But once you get to that heist moment, it was one of the most, like, honestly thrilling and anxious moments that I felt watching a movie this year. It was really anxiety-inducing, just the way that it was directed and the way that it was told. I really liked this movie a lot. I thought the writing was on point. The direction was really great. It has an awesome style to it that I thought was really creative. The acting across the board was really good. 2 thumbs up for me. That's why it's number 12 on my list. At number 11, we have Suspiria. So Suspiria was a pretty interesting movie-going experience, just because I saw it on Halloween night, and there was hardly anybody in the theater. Like, I thought the theater would be a little bit more packed, but there was hardly anybody in there. But it was a really bloody good time. I obviously enjoyed this film quite a bit. There were many aspects of this film that I really appreciated. I guess the first one being just its kind of artistically ballsy approach. The third act, you know, goes to a place that a lot of people, you know, probably wouldn't like. But I just love this film's ambition, because it wasn't afraid to go all the way with certain scenes and certain moments in the film. And I love when a movie just feels like it's uncompromising, and this film definitely feels pretty uncompromising. I did do a review of it already, so there are some issues with it that I discussed in that review. But overall, like I said, it's a really good horror film in my opinion. It's really creative. A really bloody, gory good time, that's for sure. At first, you know, you don't really get that much of it, but as the film progresses, it really delivers on that front. The direction and the camera work was also pretty impressive and unique, especially at certain moments in this film. So yeah, that's why it's number 11 on my list. So at number 10, we have 8th Grade. 8th Grade was a film that I actually wasn't so excited to see, because even though I really love A24, it just seemed like, you know, another coming of age story that we've kind of all seen before. Didn't seem like it was going to be all that original, but I was kind of wrong about a lot of that, because this film actually takes a concept that's been done quite a bit, but it's presented to you in a more grounded and definitely a more stylistic way, which is something that I thoroughly enjoyed from this film. The comedic musician turned director Bo Burnham really impressed me with this film, because I was thinking, well, he's never really directed like that before, and he's tackling a subject that's already been done a lot, but he did a lot to really add his own flavor and spice to this film. And it's a really relatable film as well, especially for people that are in middle school and going into high school. And usually, like, I don't really care so much if the film is super relatable, But this film is relatable in a more like uncomfortable way in the way that it actually dives into things that are a little bit more awkward and a little bit more uncomfortable to talk about for people that are this age. So I think this film did a really good job at, again, kind of being this more authentic and more grounded approach to this kind of coming of age style for people who are in middle school and going into high school. And also the lead actress in this film, I believe her name is Elsie Fisher or something close to that. She was phenomenal in this film. I actually would hope that she would get nominated for an Oscar. I doubt that'll happen, but if she did, I definitely wouldn't be complaining. At number 9, we have Leave No Trace. So Leave No Trace was actually another one of those films that was recommended to me throughout the year that I just, again, didn't have the time or chance to see, but I saw it, and I really liked it a lot, obviously, which is why it's number 9 on my list. This movie just blew me away on certain aspects because, to anybody who really isn't too fond of socializing with people or have more of these kind of social anxiety or post-traumatic stress problems, this film really goes into that and really visually and narratively, has a lot of thematic elements that it conveys that are honestly really important for people who do have these issues. Ben Foster was also really great in this. And also the actress, I believe her name is Thomasin McKenzie. She was really great in this film. I've never seen her in anything before this, but she has a pretty demanding role here because even though she doesn't have that much dialogue, there's a lot of crucial moments in the film where she has to convey her emotions solely through facial expressions. And, again, for an actress that I really haven't seen in much work, she really pulled those emotions off very well because this film gets emotionally deep at certain parts, and I really bought every one of those moments, and that's huge thanks to the acting and also the directing. This film's narrative is also something that's kind of unconventional because there's no real, beginning or, goal and some sort of resolution, really. I mean, there is a resolution, but it's not, structured the way a normal film that you would see is structured. Kind of just follow these characters as they go through certain things, and they go from point A to point B to point C, but there's no real objective in between those things. They're just kind of things that happen that you just have to observe, but it didn't really bother me. I found it actually pretty creative and interesting, and I was definitely engaged throughout this entire film, so I think this was a really emotionally effective film. It definitely got me in a few moments, especially the actual final act of this movie. What happens with the characters, is emotionally tragic in a way. And I thought it was just a really well-directed, well-written, and a really well-acted film. It's just on pretty much every phase, it's really well done. And it's also subtle at the same time, which is something that I highly appreciate in filmmaking. It's a very subtle movie with its theme, and I really enjoyed it, and that's why it's number 9 on my list. At number 8, we have Annihilation. So Annihilation was one of the earlier films that I saw this year. I believe I saw it in February, and I saw it 3 times in the theater because it was that awesome of a cinematic experience that I just wanted to keep experiencing that on the big screen the most I could before I left. And I'm glad I did because I really love this movie a lot. This movie has tons of creative ambition, especially for a really big budget Hollywood type film. It really goes to certain places that you wouldn't expect a big budget film would go. And it's also, a really smart and probably confusing for a lot of people, but it's a really intelligent movie in my opinion. The themes that this film chooses to dive into are not the easiest things to really convey and discuss. I think one of the biggest concerns people had with it was that it was too explanatory with certain things. But to me, this film still gives you a lot to chew on, a lot to think about. There's a lot of things in this film that really aren't spoon-fed to you, and you have to just kind of think about yourself and figure out what it was trying to say or do. And I just think, again, for a big budget Hollywood picture, this was a really creative effort. And I really dug a lot of the themes in this movie about, the randomness of the universe, about, biology and evolution and mutations and alien life and if they even have a purpose or if we even have a purpose. I just really like the themes that the writer and director Alex Garland goes into, because with his previous film, Ex Machina, was kind of the same deal, which I'm not sure which one I like better. They're both two pretty different films, but Annihilation was certainly a great film, and that's why it's number 8 on my list. At number 7, we have Thunder Road. So I've actually been really excited to be talking to you guys about Thunder Road because Thunder Road is a film that was never recommended to me by anybody. And the only reason why I know about it is because I'm a part of this film forum where a few of them were talking about how great it was. And I figured, you know what? The poster looked kind of cool. So let's give it a shot. And dude, this film it's a brilliant film. This film is an outstandingly brilliant, smart, funny, emotional movie. And it's criminally overlooked. Like, I can't believe a film this awesome is being this overlooked and swept under the rug. Like, it's so insane. Jim Cummings wrote, directed, and stars in this film. And not only does he star in it, but he gives probably one of the best, if not the best, male lead performances of the year. I'm not shitting you. Like, he was able to capture the emotion of this character so well. He plays such a kind of broken, like, unhinged character that you can't help but give your heart to and feel for throughout this entire film, just the way that it's acted and written out and directed. This film really has a lot of heart to it and a lot of nuance to its characters, because not only is the main character really interesting, but a lot of the characters surrounding the main character also have a lot of meaningful touch to them, and they're all really great, and this film is great, and again, it just sucks how nobody knows about it. And that's why I really wanted to talk about it, because it's such a great film. I mean, right when the movie starts, it immediately hooked me, because it starts off with this like really long, like 9 or 10 minute long take that doesn't cut. It's all one shot long take. And it's basically Jim Cummings, the main lead actor, kind of giving this eulogy at a funeral. I won't spoil it any more than that, but his performance was just on point. The direction of the entire scene was really on point. The writing, again, just spectacular writing. It was just a really immersive and really impressive opening shot to the film. And from there on, it's like every scene afterwards that follows the other just kind of gives you something awesome. Like, it's almost like each scene tops the other one. If there's one thing that I can get you to take away from this video, it's to go watch Thunder Road. I know it's not my number 1 movie of the year, obviously, but it's so disgustingly overlooked, and it's so hidden. It's so unfair to the film. It's a huge damn shame that a lot of people don't know about this film or even heard about it. So please go watch Thunder Road. I thought it was a brilliant film. Jim Cummings just really gives a great performance in this film. Really impressed me with his overall filmmaking approach. And yeah, that's why it's number 7 on my list. At number 6, we have Roma. So if I was making an objective best films of the year list, just purely objective, Roma would probably be number 1. But again, this is like a more like personal taste / objective list, so it's not number 1, but it's still an insanely well-crafted film. One of the most well-crafted films that I've ever seen in my life. The realism in this film is off the charts. Nothing about this film feels manufactured or artificial. It all feels insanely genuine. The character writing in this film is also really thematic and really interesting. Very nuanced characters in this film. It's not black and white. This is not like rich people bad, poor people good. The lead actress, Yalitza, just gives an incredible performance, especially for somebody who's never even really been in a movie. So this film is just really, it's a really astonishing piece of filmmaking. Everybody should really check this movie out. It's on Netflix. You have no reason to not check it out. Everybody should check it out, whether you're a film lover or not, just because the overall craft of this film is just so impressive and staggering. So at number 5, we have The Favorite. So The Favorite was definitely one of my most anticipated films of the year, and it obviously did not let me down at all. The writer and director Yorgos Lanthimos just puts on a show with this film. His directing style is very noticeable here, and it's really unique and creative. The performances all across the board are really good. Emma Stone gives one hell of a performance. Rachel Weisz gives one hell of a performance. Olivia Colman, also just really impressive performance. I would not be pissed off at all if all 3 of these actresses got nominated for awards, because they really knocked it out of the park. And again, just the writing of their character too is very, I mean, they're all kind of piece of shit people in a way, but they're a little bit more than that. You can kind of see where they're coming from when it comes to certain situations and when it comes to their goals. And it's just a really fun movie, and it's also a really smart movie. And I really love the ending to this film as well, because, it was one of those really kind of like artistically ballsy moves that, it ends in a way that most people walking out probably wouldn't be satisfied with. But for me, I was very satisfied. I really liked the kind of character conveyance it was going for with that, with the ending. And it was very Lanthimos, and I'm glad that Lanthimos' style was very present in this film, because that was one of my main concerns going in. So at number 4, we have Hereditary. Hereditary was one of those movies that stuck in my mind for so long, just because I really did not expect the narrative approach that this film went down. This film just did an excellent job at really unsettling me to my core, in both of the aspects of just like grounded, more realistic, earthly horror, like horror that definitely could happen in real life, and then also, more of that supernatural horror that is usually hard to really get me with, but the way that it was directed and the way that it was acted, it was just really unsettling, and it was really creepy. And I just love the aesthetics of this film as well. The aesthetics are like really, really creative and really immersive. The cinematography and the score to this film are blended together just so well. They accompany each other throughout the entire film, and it really emotionally grabs you. Very rarely will an event that occurs in a film like genuinely shock me to my core. And this film achieved that, and I couldn't be happier. I also thought the acting across the board was very well done. It was very believable. Obviously, especially from the main actress, Toni Collette. If she doesn't get nominated this year, just completely fuck the Oscars. I mean, fuck the Oscars already, seriously, but if they just don't even recognize her, like, that's just stupid. And I don't want to hear it's not going to get nominated because it's a horror film, because Get Out was a horror film, but that got nominated for tons of shit, and it even won an award, so you can't use that. But yeah, I love Hereditary. It's very emotional. It's very unsettling. The aesthetics are masterful in my opinion, and I give loads of praise to the writer and director Ari Aster. That dude just really impressed me with this film, so I can't wait to see what else he comes up with. I heard he's already on board for making another A24 horror film, so I'm hugely looking forward to that. At number 3, we have The House That Jack Built. So with The House That Jack Built, I really did not expect to love this film that much, because the only Lars von Trier film that I saw beforehand was Dancer in the Dark, and I thought it was a good film, but I wasn't super impressed with it. But The House That Jack Built probably gave me the most unforgettable movie-going experiences of the year, and probably one of the most memorable movie experiences that I'll have for my entire life. And just overall, I just really got on board with this film's approach, and I know that this film was kind of polarizing and divisive. Some people are just discounting it as just, pretentious bullshit, and Lars is just far up his own ass, which, sure, it kind of is, but the way that it's utilized and the way that it's executed, I thought was really interesting and really creative and thought-provoking. And it's a very self-aware film. Right from the get-go, it's breaking the fourth wall, and it's basically like telling you that you're watching a movie. And I just think it's interesting because it's hard to do that and then also be really immersive and captivating. And I found it to be really immersive and captivating. And yeah, sure, this film has its insanely shocking moments that some people argue are just there so Von Trier can get more traction on this film. But a lot of the shocking moments work for a purpose in this film. I just really thought those shocking moments served the film well and gave it more of an impact, because when I watched the R-rated version and saw that they basically completely cut out some of the violence that was in it, some of the core violence that was in it, it lost a lot of the impact. And I know some people are going to say that I'm fucked up for that, but it just didn't have the same impact that I wanted it to. And maybe that's just because I know what I saw before, and to see it get kind of censored and diluted like that is just annoying. But I thought a lot of the shocking violence in this movie just served the film well, and it gave it more staying power, and it also gave me a more unforgettable movie-going experience. So I just really love this film's ambition, and I really love its creativity. And I've never seen a film put together like this in this kind of way. I found it to be very original. And again, it's a really good discussion piece as well. Even though this film is very straightforward with its themes, and yes, sometimes just deliberately tells you what he's going for with certain scenes, there's still, to me, a lot of room there to really discuss, because a lot of the concepts that get brought up are just these kinds of unanswered philosophical questions. But yeah, I really dug this film a lot. Matt Dillon just puts a phenomenal performance in this film. It gets pretty unsettling. It gets pretty cringe at times. And I really love it for that. And I don't mean to be a dirty shield right now, but I do have an ending analysis video on it. So if you want to check that out, that'd be pretty cool. It'd be nice. Check it out for me. At number 2, we have Mandy, which is written and directed by Panos Cosmatos, and it stars Nick Cage. So again, if we're talking about movie-going experiences, this was one hell of a film to really experience in a big theater with good sound system, because this film pretty much gave me exactly what I expected out of it. Because the way that the trailer's presented is like the first half looks like this really awesome art house slow pace approach, and the second half looks like this really B-grade action violent Evil Dead type thing. And the film basically just gives you that. And the first time I watched it, I thought the transition between the two parts was a little jarring. It was hard for me to get into. But I watched it a few more times after that, and it really grew on me. It doesn't really bother me anymore. And I thought it to be just a really fun, bloody, violent, and even thought-provoking thrill ride. There's a lot of interesting themes in this film, especially in the first half, that are presented about cults and religious leaders and stuff like that. And I thought that was a really fun take on it as well. And just overall, it's just a really badass film. Like, it's a really, doesn't give a fuck, kind of like Grindhouse style, edgy movie that I thought was just really fun to watch. Most people that I talk about this film with, they really like it a lot too. I even watched this with a friend of mine who's more of a casual moviegoer, and he dug it a lot. So this film has a very interesting way to appeal to certain audiences, even people that aren't huge film lovers or film enthusiasts. They can find a lot of enjoyment out of this film as well, because the second half gives you a lot of that just kind of fun, action, violent part of it. Yeah, I love Mandy. Mandy's an excellent film. It's a really cool looking film too, beautifully shot film. I highly recommend everybody to see it if you haven't already, and that's why it's number 2 on my list. Alright, so here we are. We're at number 1 now. It's time for me to veil my personal / objective best film of the year. And to me, that film is at number 1, we have You Were Never Really Here, directed by Lynn Ramsey and starring Joaquin Phoenix. This film, I think, just gave me so much that I did not expect going into it. It also gave me, as well as the other 2 films in my top 3, it gave me, again, just a really brilliant cinematic experience. To me, this is a film that should be thoroughly enjoyed on a big screen with big speakers, because the aesthetics to this movie are flawless. This movie does not have essentially any aesthetic flaw to it. The cinematography is just beautiful. There's a scene in a lake that is just shot insanely well. It's just so captivating. I was just insanely impressed to see how this film was able to convey character depth and convey narrative as well, because this film is almost entirely visual conveyance and visual storytelling. Joaquin Phoenix just gives an excellent performance in this film, and it sucks that the Academy has no buzz for this film at all. They always talk about female directors. Well, Lynn Ramsey just made in my opinion, the best film of the year, and crickets. No one cares, right? But yeah, I just love the way that this film is crafted. I love the direction of this film. To me, this is what cinema is. This is what cinema means to me. When I go to a movie theater, this is what I hope to really experience. This is the peak of what I hope for and expect. And I did not expect that going into this film. I mean, I heard it was good, but I did not think it was going to give me that much of an experience and that much of lingering discussion and a lot of just stuff to talk about, because this film, not only is it beautiful, but I was spending weeks just talking about this film with people, and I even did an analysis for it as well too, so if you want to go check that out, that'd be nice. But I just really adore this film. I think obviously everybody should go check it out if you haven't already. It's a masterfully crafted film, and I give huge praise to Lynn Ramsey for creating a product that was this astonishing. Well, we are finally done. Thanks for everybody who actually sat through this piece of shit video. I appreciate you listening to me blabber on for I don't know how long it's going to be, maybe 30 minutes, but I appreciate you. You're awesome. By the way, I intentionally did not include Under the Silver Lake because technically that does not get released in the United States until next year. So I figured that I would just save that for next year. So that's why it's not in there. If you really liked what I had to say and liked my list, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.